Varuna. Written by Phillip Vincent. Narrated by Phillip Ormond. The steel door swung open, and sunlight spilled onto the concrete floor. A guard reached out and gruffly ushered Malik Bashir inside, then pointed to the far end of the cavernous warehouse, where a single light hung from the high ceiling. Malik started across the floor toward the light, when the clang of the heavy doors slamming shut behind him stopped him in his tracks. Malik had bolstered his confidence, rehearsing what he would say while on his way to the dank warehouse in the Muara Angay slum on the northern outskirts of Jakarta. But now his courage faltered. Needing more time, he lit a cigarette and paused to let his eyes adjust to the dim light. He took a drag, noticed his hand tremble, then dropped and crushed out the cigarette with the toe of his boat shoe. He set his jaw and started toward a group of men under the light at the far end. The warehouse smelled of dust and moldy cardboard, and was stacked high with boxes and crates. The rubber soles of Malik's shoes squeaked with each step, the sound reverberating down the wide corridor, making him all the more nervous. Approaching the far end, he recognized Anand Priya, the man who'd summoned him. To his left stood another man, with shoulders as broad as he was tall, a long braided beard, and a fierce scowl. There was no mistaking Echo, Anand's ever-present bodyguard and enforcer. A chill ran up Malik's spine. Courage. Another man was seated between the two in a folding metal chair, wearing what appeared to Malik to be a green military jacket. The man's hands were tied behind his back, his knees strapped together with a belt, and his ankles bound to the front legs of the chair. His face was bruised and swollen, and his jacket and shirt ripped open, exposing an undershirt soaked with sweat and stained with blood. Echo cast a contemptuous glance toward Malik, and then poked at a burlap bag on the floor at the man's feet. The bag writhed and twisted in response. The man in the chair saw Malik and struggled at his bindings. "You've got to help me," he pleaded. "Please, he's insane. Get me out of here." "Ah, Salamat pagi, Malik." Anand ignored the man's pleas and greeted Malik in Indonesian, as if he had unexpectedly run into an old acquaintance. He glanced at Echo. "Shut that blubbering fool up while I talk with my old friend, Malik." Echo picked up a roll of duct tape, tore off a piece, and slapped it across their captive's mouth. Anand had been a leader of the Black Sea Tigers, a commando unit of the Tamil Tigers, but now his business was gun-running, smuggling, and hijacking. More recently, he had added running illegal fishing fleets poaching the waters of protected marine reserves. He used the warehouse to store and distribute stolen or smuggled merchandise, and to interrogate, torture, or execute his enemies. "You've arrived just in time," Anand said. He walked behind the seated man and patted his captive's shoulders. Anand was dressed impeccably, as usual. White linen shirt, its sleeves rolled perfectly up to just below the elbows. Tailored silk slacks with creases like the features of his face, sharp as a dagger's edge. The patches of gray at his temples softened his otherwise hard features, giving him an air of sophistication, even kindliness. Malik knew better. "Work before pleasure, though," Anand continued. "I was disappointed I didn't hear directly from you about your new charter." Malik stumbled for words. I was going to tell you," he lied. "How could Anand already know about my charter?" "I'm sure you were. You wouldn't intentionally keep information like that from me, would you?" "No, of course not," he lied again. "Looks like you're busy, Anand," Malik said, with a nod toward the seated man. Maybe I should come back later. Nonsense. I wanted you to see this. Our friend in uniform here readily accepted the generous gifts I offered. All I asked in return was a little cooperation in keeping the authorities away from my trawlers. But then he told me I'd have to pay more for what he'd already promised. He even threatened to go to my competitors. You know me, Malik. When I make a deal, I keep my end of the bargain. This sort of behavior can't be tolerated. It's bad for business. The uniformed man struggled to speak, grunting incoherently, his gaze darting back and forth between Anand and Malik. I hope he has the sense to tell you what you want to hear. Malik glanced at the terrified man, then averted his gaze, ashamed those feeble words were the only help he could offer. And miss the fun? Rest assured, my seafaring friend, he'll give me what I need before we finish here today. Right now, I want to talk about your charter. Anand stepped away from his prisoner and put his arm around Malik's shoulder. Turns out, the timing of your assignment is perfect. I have some merchandise I want you to deliver. Listen, Anand, I've done everything you asked for 3 years now. I've earned you a fortune. I want out. I see. Anand frowned and took his arm off Malik's shoulder. He walked to the burlap sack, still writhing on the floor at Echo's feet. Anand squatted, picked up the drawstrings, and carefully spread open the top. Come, look at this. Thanks, I'll pass, Malik said, shaking his head. It wasn't a request. Malik inched closer and leaned over to look inside. The head of a large hooded snake rose up and struck at him. Shit! Malik jerked back, nearly tripping over his own feet. Isn't she a beauty? Anand said, smiling broadly. Asiatic cobra, very toxic venom, and a nasty temper to boot. Anand pulled the drawstrings tight, picked up the writhing bag, and set it on the seated man's thighs. The man wriggled in terror, futilely trying to dump it off his lap. Remember what my last pet did to that traitor? Anand continued. Watching it was truly a religious experience. He died too quick, though. Wouldn't you agree? You're not going to let that thing loose, are you? Malik took another step back, his stomach still in his throat. Don't be stupid. Echo will put the sack over the colonel's head and tie the drawstrings tight round his neck. Then we'll watch the fun begin. He likes little girls. Let's see how he likes this one. Anand's favorite pastime was buying exotic animals from poachers at the infamous Yogyakarta bird market on Java. He paid top dollar for those that could maim or kill. His previous purchase was a half-starved Sumatran tiger, poached from the Tesonilo National Park. Anand ordered Malik to sit beside him, while Echo shoved a man into a steel cage Anand had his men build for the occasion. Forced to watch, Malik struggled to keep from retching, while the tiger killed and devoured the man as Anand sat on the edge of his seat and stared in fascination. I think we're ready, Echo. Anand licked his lips in anticipation. Take the tape off. I want to hear everything. I didn't come here for this, Anand, Malik said, swallowing his nausea as memories of Anand's previous demonstrations of cruelty flooded back. Anand stared intently at Malik. Need I remind you who saved your life? Do you think you'd be alive today if I hadn't paid off your debt? I own your debt, which means I own you. Resignation washed over Malik like a bucket of slime. Give me the details of what you want me to deliver,